Hi, it's MJ Callaway here in my tiny bounce up studio, and I'm excited to share a guest interview with you today. And Jessi Wagner is one of the contributors in the book project 21. And think of it as 20 WON and not the number 21. So, Jessi, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thrilled to have you here and to share some of your story. Now, Jessi, before we get started, can I share a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Sure. Jessi Wagner is a mother and a wife of two, and they're two little ones. And from being a teacher to a therapist, and now she is solely being her own boss of multiple businesses. Jessi is passionate about empowering mothers to live authentically and to love themselves fully. Now, that is one heck of a mission for you.
Thank you.
And there's a reason behind it, because you have, not only have you changed careers and changed paths, but you also have had some issues with postpartum after you had your second child. Mm-hmm. And I, from our talk earlier, could you share a little bit about what was the transition for you from going to teacher to into the mental health industry?
Sure. So when I was doing my student teaching, so first of all, I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I have certifications in elementary, early childhood, and special ed. And so as I was, finishing up my undergrad and doing my student teaching and things like that, I started to see a lot of what I felt like were injustices in the classroom for not only the teachers, but also for the students. And I had decided that I felt more called to work a little bit more on the mental health side of it. I felt like I had a really hard time, trying to get my kids to take standardized tests when they weren't getting the support that they needed at home, or they didn't even know how to sit still, or whatever it is. There's so many things that are impacting kids behind the scenes more than just, writing, reading, and math. And so I thought that for me personally, I felt more called to go in that direction. So I started grad school for counseling. I wanted to become a family therapist, and I ended up getting a job at a partial hospitalization program approved private school, where it was a school for kids who had been diagnosed with severe emotional behavior disorders. So for me, I felt like it was kind of the best of both worlds. I ended up getting a teaching position there. So I was teaching, but it still felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something different. I really respect so many teachers that I know who do an amazing job of staying focused on what they're doing in the classroom and knowing that they're changing lives of who is in their room. But I had a hard time because my mind is just always looking at something different. And I wanted to change this and wanted to change this and didn't want to do this, and a little bit rebellious in nature, I would say, for sure. But I felt like, being a therapist would just felt a little bit more aligned with what I wanted. And so I transitioned to being a therapist, and still it felt really hard for me to be present with my clients when we had a crazy amount of paperwork, a crazy amount of just requirements. It felt really hard. And I just started to, as my health and wellness business grew that I was working on the side, and I had I had my daughter, and we wanted to have a second. I just really felt like I wanted to be in charge of my time, but I had a hard time letting go of that, of my career, because I loved what I did. I really loved being a therapist, but I kind of just knew that if I took that leap of faith to leave my job to focus solely on my health and wellness business, that something more would come for me. I knew that I was so passionate about social justice and advocacy that was always going to be on my heart and always going to be something that I involved myself in. I just didn't fully know what that would look like.
And with that, so you are in the mental health industry, you have a background in it, and then you went into as a side business, or some people call it a side hustle. You're also in the health and wellness industry.
Correct.
And with that, because you had some struggles, as a lot of women do, with after you had your baby. So could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So um, when I had my first daughter, I was still teaching, and it was so nice because when I had my maternity leave, I wasn't getting paid for my teaching job, but I did have the additional income from my health and wellness business. And it was so fun. I was loving having extra time to work my business. I was loving being home with Hannah. And things were just easier and fun. The Arbonne income was extra. But then by the time when I left my therapy position, I had got pregnant with my son, which I also don't think was a coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. We were trying really hard for a while to have our second, and it didn't happen until literally 2 weeks after I left my job. We got pregnant with my son. And so, but for that whole time that I was pregnant, I really got a feel for, what life looks like when you're 100% owning your time. And I loved, I felt like I was finally my own person again. I felt like I was starting to own my identity. I was starting to, come into who I was meant to be. And, again, I just really loved owning my time. But also at this point now, my health and wellness business was a much more significant income to our family than it was on my maternity leave the first time. So not only were things just very different, but so when I had Logan, I felt so much pressure to not only maintain the income I was making for our family. You don't get maternity leave from your own business, but also I wanted to, show other women what was possible. I wanted to show my kids what was possible. I wanted to keep up with the kind of self-care routines that I had in place for myself and do all the things that I was doing, before I had him, and things were just really different. Having two kids is a whole different ballgame. And again, trying to work your business and all these things were just so different for me that I think a lot of those factors played into a really, really hard postpartum journey that I later recognized was some pretty serious postpartum depression and anxiety. I don't know. I started thinking a little bit about what that was like. But so it was funny for me because as a therapist and a mom having her second baby, I didn't really know where to turn. And I realized that was a problem. And I also realized, this is what I was trying to think of. I'm always very open about what I'm going through because I know it's really important for people to hear that other people are struggling with the same things. And as I opened up about how hard it was for me, more and more moms started opening up, and I had no idea what people struggle with. I thought everybody else was able to run their business, keep their house clean, keep their relationship with their husband and amazing and all of these things. And I felt like I was the only one who was having a hard time doing all of that until I started opening my mouth and found that other people were doing the same.
Always behind the scenes. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes.
For sure.
So with it, because that was in 2019, is that correct? That you were going through that? And then you go right from postpartum right into the pandemic.
Really, the start of my even healing through postpartum started right when the pandemic started also.
Wow. And there was one, and you look at it as, even though it was hard times, you also look at it as it was an opportunity. And can you share what came out of it as an opportunity for you?
Absolutely. So I have always been really big on being grateful for everything that you're going through and trying to, I could tear up, but just knowing that everything that you're going through is truly for a reason. But it's harder to remember that in the moment. But as I was speaking out and sharing my struggles, and like I said, I realized that other women were going through this, I started to realize that tug on my heart that I knew when I left my therapy position would be to hone in a little bit more on maternal mental health. But again, I still didn't know what that would look like. I have a pretty big goal that's hopefully going to happen really soon of having a wellness center to kind of encompass everything, to encompass the health and wellness physically, emotionally, mentally, and all of those things. So that idea was in my head, but also, and that's been on my heart for a while, but I knew that wasn't, I needed to do something right now. That's kind of what my personality is I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do it now. I didn't know what it was. And then it just popped into my head one day and I said, I'm going to make an affirmation deck of cards for moms. I had never seen anything like it. I felt like it was so necessary to help moms feel empowered, to find solidarity more than anything, because I think that in some of these cards, women will come to me and say like, wow, like this was so spot on. I thought I was the only one. And that's never the case. And so, the deck of cards is now called Mama Mantras. We have been to 4 different countries. They are in, I think, over 20 states in the United States, over 70 cities, something like that. So it was just amazing. I started an Etsy shop and just kind of ran with it. And I learned so much along the way. You know, like I said, I am somebody who, gets it done sometimes to a fault that I sometimes need to step back, but I'd rather learn. And that's exactly what I did. I learned things along the way about having your own business in a different way than, what I do in my health and wellness business.
And that being grateful, that gratitude can help us in so many different ways, because it goes back to mindset. And mindset, as you know, in mental health makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And that's something that I love about the cards is I really encourage people to use them every single day, to pull a card each morning, just to kind of set your tone for the day, to set you off on a positive note, but also when you really need it, when you're struggling and you're having a bad day. And it's one little thing, which is another reason why I really loved doing this, because as busy moms, it's not always easy to have self-care. We can't just, and when we think of the word self-care, people think manicures and massages and baths and all of those things. And while those are amazing, when you're in the middle of a crisis with your kids, you can't just say like, oh, I'm going to go take a bubble bath now, so you have to have other tools in your toolbox. And the more that you reinforce those positive thoughts, the easier that it is to just live in that frame of mind. And so it never fails that when you're having a hard time or whatever it is, you shuffle your cards and you pull one out and you find exactly what you needed.
What is one tip or tactic in addition to getting your mama mantras that someone at home can do? Someone who is listening to us today, what can they do?
So I think meditation has helped me tremendously. And I think that is so powerful for so many reasons, because number one, you'll be amazed if you actually just sit and listen, the answers that you will hear. And number two, there is physiological reasons behind what just slowing down and quieting your mind can do for your stress levels. And as I say that, I just want to also say that you don't have to feel like you're not good at meditation or you don't know how to do it. There's so many guided meditations out there. There's so many, sound baths and different things like that, but no one can just click and shut their mind off and think that that's going to work. So if you're new to this, or if you have been trying, I still don't just sit down and turn my mind off. I've gotten a lot better at being able to close my eyes and get a little bit grounded more than I have in the past. But that is one super powerful tool that anybody can do for any amount of time, that I really believe in.
And I find them on YouTube. There are so many on YouTube. Yep. Have you ever listened to Louise Hay's, her meditation?
Yes, for sure. She's amazing.
Yes, definitely. So, and one of my someone that I had followed through the years is Louise Hay's.
Yes, for sure.
How can someone get a hold of you? Someone who wants to reach out to you, that they've connected with you, how can they get a hold of you?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook. I have my own personal accounts, Jessi Wagner, and also my Mama Mantras accounts. Both are just Mama Mantras. It's Mama_Mantras_ on Instagram. And you can find my Facebook page as well.
Jessi, thank you so much for sharing such a heartfelt story. Sharing your emotions and your vulnerability with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
This is MJ Callaway signing out, but remember, make it a bounce up day.